This episode is sponsored by the Twindle Foundation. Learn more at www.twindlefoundation.org.
Let's talk.
So many people stay hidden due to fear. Fear of judgment, shame, or even guilt. You are not alone on your journey. Girl, you are not alone. This is a safe place. A place to be heard, a place to be free, a place to be yourself. Bring your girlfriends and let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. I'm so excited. You know why?
I am too. Well, I'll tell you as we go.
No, go ahead. Tell me. Go ahead.
Oh, so
I'm
we're
ready.
starting?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So before we started, I needed to take a nap. I wanted to be refreshed and I needed to get the jitters out.
Oh, you know what? I'm so proud of my girlfriends for stepping up to the plate and getting out of their comfort zone and just diving into this with me, because I knew that this was something that I would get the side eye with, but everyone was so supportive and just said that I'm going to do this for you. And
Thanks.
So that was so exciting for me, because a lot of times you hear people say, we don't get the type of support that we need from our friends. And a lot of times it's because we're all in different spaces and there's so much going on. And sometimes you're not able to give what people need from you at that moment, because you're not able to give yourself what you need in that moment. And so I was so excited about this whole term, because this was very quick when I said, hey, let's jump on and do like a birthday celebration. And it was more for me. I had to stop and thank God and said that support was something that is big for me. Like it is, because it was something that I hadn't received. And so I felt like God was filling my cup, just allowing this to come together, because it was exactly what I needed. And also,
I like that.
Yeah, celebration, like being celebrated. And I think that because I wasn't celebrated as often when I was younger, I came to a place where I closed my heart off to being celebrated, because I'd never received it before. And so it's just like, oh, I don't need it, or I don't want that, And so now it's just like, well, why don't you? And I had to figure out the reason why I was holding that wall in that place. And so I had to open myself up and be able to receive the goodness of God. So yeah,
such a blessing. That feels so good and warming to be in a place of, especially as a woman, because we are the receivers. It feels good to be in your divine place as a receiver. So that's beautiful. And you know what else about you that I know, since I've been a long-term friend since middle school?
20-something years, baby. 20-something years.
That's something to celebrate, because
absolutely,
I've been cutting folks off as they deserve to be.
Time to go.
Okay, time is up in your season, your moment,
that's
whatever,
right.
How long it was supposed to be, that's it.
We're
what
evolving.
I want to say about you is, I feel like you've always been in a position of strength. I feel like you've always been in a position of leadership. So sometimes when we're in those leadership roles, we don't understand that it's okay to receive, because we're always giving as well.
Yes.
So sometimes you have to learn new things in your role in order to be in your divine place as well.
That is so.
I do believe that comes entering into the age of 40. I do believe that.
Yeah.
Learning how to receive and how to be okay with receiving, because as a Black woman in America, sometimes we're always in survival mode.
Yes, absolutely.
And because you're in survival mode, you're not always surrounded by people who can properly give to you, and the things that they're giving to you, you don't want it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're kind of used to rejecting the things that aren't even worth receiving. But then when you come into a place where you're like, oh, that's worth taking or receiving, you're like, I can get that. I can take that. That's good and healthy for me, versus the negative energy that people can at times give off.
Well, listen, you know what? I'm going to say this, and I'm going to blame it on the wine, because sometimes when people,
They songs blaming on the alcohol.
Yes, absolutely. It's sometimes when people give you that, just pour it in that negative, and you stop, and you're like, but you know better, right? And you're like,
Right.
you pause, and inside, internally, I want to say, what the hell is wrong with you?
Right. Right. Like, you want to dump that on my plate?
Exactly. Like, why? Why?
Right.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Right. Exactly. I think that also comes entering to the age of 40 as well. Although in your 20s, you're a bit fiery and anything just flies off the handle in your mouth.
Yes.
I do believe by the time you hit 30, you're at a place where you could think before you speak.
Yes.
And by the time you're at 40, you've already been through so much life experience. You're then at a place where it's like, oh, I know that this is the proper thing to say.
Yes. You become very mindful of what you're putting out. Exactly.
Yeah, very thoughtful. And that's the good thing. That's the good thing about 40, the maturity that comes with it.
Yeah.
The maturity that comes with it. You put away childish things, and then we become women.
Yes. I love the way that you said that.
Worthy women who's worthy of receiving God's blessing.
That's right. And you know what? I always tell myself, and it's a constant reminder, that God would never withhold anything of good from me. But God won't hold back the foolishness now.
Because we don't. Because we have to learn self-control and discipline in those areas. I'm still working in those areas.
Talk about discipline.
Yeah.
Listen, let me tell you something. So when I turned 40, well, not when I turned 40, but earlier this year, like at the end of December, I said, I'm going to sacrifice a couple of things. I feel like when I discipline myself in areas that I overindulge, if I overindulge in an area, I'd say, okay, hold on a second. I think you're a little bit greedy. Let's put a hold on it. And so I would fast from those things. So this year, I walked into the year as there was two things on last year that I saw myself having too much of. The one thing was sweets. Cake. I love some cake. I love some cake.
Yes, you do.
The second thing was new sneakers. That is an addiction for me.
Yes. I would never have called it an addiction, but definitely you have always been a fan of sneakers.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've learned to appreciate that about you. Also, through some of my younger male cousins, I learned that there's just a world of people who love sneakers. And I'm a bare feet type of person, so sneakers was never a big deal to me, but I took interest in it because it was always in the forefront with you. Girl, you in those East Bay books. Okay.
Absolutely.
I learned that people just love sneakers, and I think that's a cool thing.
You love what you love, and so for me, I knew that I always feel like if I do something more than I should, then I need to work in that area as far as discipline. But I learned this even like with my workout schedule, like I'm always going to push in those areas. And I feel like the way my schedule is for my work to work out is the way that I discipline myself in other areas of my life. So I don't allow, if something happens that I have to shift, then I'm going to make sure that I'm able to shift it right along. It's not going to be, no, I'm not going to make it today. Oh, I'm not going to do it. No, I'm going to do it because this is what I need to maintain myself for the next half of my life. So it's just like, it's necessary. So I find myself whenever I always try to discipline myself so that I can grow. The biggest part is so that I can grow in other areas. Like, I mean, of course, anyone can have some cake, and I'm also having some cake for my birthday, but I know that once that is over, I'm going to just go back into, I'm okay. I could just, wait until the next year. And as far as shoes, now that has been.
Wait, hold on. You only going to have cake until the next year?
No, I mean, for my birthday. So I haven't had any cake, any pie, any cookies.
This year?
No. And my niece said to
me,
Yes. And my niece said, what are you going to do for Christmas and Thanksgiving? I said, I'm going to do what I'm doing now, nothing. I said, I know what it tastes like. You know what I mean? And so it's not like you're missing anything. It's just like, I feel like I've had my fair share. It's okay if I skip a slice.
Yeah,
So I feel like, and
I
that's how I
agree.
feel in those areas of my life. And I feel like that's how I continue to keep myself disciplined and grow in other areas. I
Good
learned how to make those
job.
sacrifices.
So
And I'm
proud of
telling you,
you.
thank you, girl. And I feel
Yes.
like when I walked into 40, because 39 had been so challenging. And
Really?
then challenging. Like I feel like I've been in a season for the last 4 years, I believe. But the thing is that it's been a season, but the seasons have been different. So it's been, and I've learned to identify where I was, and I still, and it's
Yes. That's
almost like
important.
exactly. It was like being in a season, but it was more of challenging myself. I was in a season where I understood where I was going. Even when I didn't understand, I could still feel like, okay, I could see the direction, but it was still tough. And when I
Right.
got to 40, I thought that things were going to be a lot different. There were some high expectations, but I feel like now when I reflect back on it, I feel like when I turned 40, it was a season of correction. And I thought that that was really good for me. That was really good. So I feel like I've been preparing for that moment. It was building up. And then it was just like, okay, now we need to correct some things in your life.
Yeah.
I was correcting some things and dismantling things at the same time. And so, yeah, it's been quite interesting.
Praise God.
I know that's right. I know that's right. So it's been very interesting. Tell me, what do you think? Like, what was your season like when walking into 40? What was that like for you?
Okay, so usually I like to create a transitional space between my decades.
Okay.
And I love talking to older women, and that's scriptural. They bring you wisdom. So there were some things I was already expecting, but there were also some things that I desired for myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in preparing, one, I knew once you hit 40, eyesight starts to go just a little bit.
Girl, talk about some shutdowns. Everything just, okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. Keep going.
Then the other thing was reflecting, like you said, to just look back on my life and just say, what are some of the things that I would like to keep and some of the things that I would like to change and some of the things that I would like to dismantle, like
Yes.
bulldoze. So I was already ready to enter into 40 with a new attitude because one, it's a blessing for a Black woman to live to the age of 40 in America.
I'll raise my
Let's
cup.
be clear about that. And then once you realize that you've reached that milestone, it's like, let's celebrate life. And the Bible says that Jesus came so that we can live life and live life abundantly
yes.
and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I realized, what am I not enjoying? Because I'm going to enjoy the rest of the years of my life. And that's pretty much how I'm living life. I'm living my dream and I'm happy about that. I'm able to do that at the age of 40.
Yes.
41.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. So I feel like, and this is something that I had to learn because there's so much joy in everything that you said. I felt that in my spirit, even when things were challenging and I didn't understand exactly what I was going through. I had to remind myself that it was so necessary. It was so necessary. And I still had to count my blessing in the pain because I knew that God was pruning me, and he was cutting off those bad pieces, so that, and I think about my plants outside because I love
I was
plants.
just about to say, because I'm in the plant therapy. So when you said pruning, all I could think about was the new shoots that start to come after you get the dead stuff off of it.
Exactly. And when you put, and what happens is they start to expand. They start to expand and they blossom. And I felt like those dead ends were being cut off. And I was starting to blossom and I was multiplying. There was an increase. And I felt like, exactly, it's so necessary. It was so necessary. So even in those moments when they were tough, it was still, God, I know this is necessary. And there was this one scripture, well, not scripture, there was this verse in a song that Tasha Cobb Lennon sings, You Know My Name. And she would always say, and this is whenever I had a bad day, I would always sing this part in this song. And she said, God, you know me, and I trust you with my life. Who else knows me? Who else? Who else knows me? You know, and who else can I trust because he's the author and the finisher. So who else could I trust? You know, so that verse has helped me to push in some very heavy, dark times when I didn't understand.
Right.
And when it was so hard, and I'm like, God, it was shut up. It was almost like, God, do I have to drink from this cup? I looked at this cup and thought about that. Like,
look at that.
Shut up, like, God, do I have to drink this from this cup? So it was tough. It was really
and put a
tough.
pause in that for just a second, because people need to know and understand that is real life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, absolutely. Even Jesus had to ask his father, like, do I drink from this cup? And
absolutely.
if I must drink from this cup, he had to ask his strength from his heavenly Father.
Yes.
Yeah. So we too do not escape that at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when I hear people talk about there's one thing for us to have strength or whatever, but there's always going to be weakness that comes along with the process. And that's absolutely okay.
It's necessary.
It's absolutely okay.
It's
That's
necessary.
Exactly right. We're going to fall.
Necessary.
We're going to fall. And God is setting up to pick us back up. So for all the strong people, all the strong women out there, it is absolutely okay when you're not strong, because God made us that way. Exactly.
To be weak.
Exactly. And not feel like something is wrong with you, or if there's something wrong because you are, because if there's nothing wrong with that, because in some season you're going to be very vulnerable. You may not be able to pick yourself up, you know, and we have to allow God to restore us, to give us his strength so that we can continue to move forward on our journey.
Let's talk about what our weakness look like, or our weak moments look like. Because sometimes people don't understand
You're right.
what that is, or what it looks like, or even how to move in that. So, you know, like how sometimes you could be raised where they're like, no crying or stop the crying. Mm-hmm. That's an emotional release. And I think people need to understand that, men and women, that it's okay to cry, because that's just one way to that's an outlet of frustration, of weakness, of your anger, of whatever emotion that comes with it.
It's a part of healing. It's a part of healing. Right. It is. Listen, before, and I'm going to just pause right there. I'm sorry. I'm going to just insert this. So before we got started this morning, I got up and I was at the gym, and I started to feel something that was in my heart. There was something, it was like maybe a trigger, but I kept saying, God, why am I facing this again? There has to be something. And I was just about to run, because I'm a runner. I am, but I have learned to pause and face what I'm dealing with, because if I don't, I'm going to see it again. So no matter what, it's going to come back around. And so I thought, and I wanted to process that moment. And so I sat down and I just kind of went back and reflected on what was going on, what was happening, and what brought me to that point. And so I came to a place, and I allowed God to take me on this journey, taking me back to where it all began. And listen, I wept, cried, and I felt the release of that, because I had to let it go. First, I had to identify, hey, like I said, I knew that something was wrong, so I had to identify and acknowledge it. And then I sat down and I started talking to God, and I started to tell him what I was feeling in that moment, not the moment that occurred today, but in the past, what seed that I had sown in my heart and that I was reaping a harvest from. Mm-hmm. And so, and I wanted to explain to him, even although he knew exactly what I was feeling during that time, but I wanted to tell him what that made me feel like. And even now, the comparison of what was happening in there now, I wanted him to know what that made me feel like. Okay. And then after I cried, I felt that burden release. Then I prayed so I could let it go. I also inserted some forgiveness from my own behavior and allowing those things to happen. And I think that that's something that people need to realize, that we have to let go, but there's a way to let those things go.
It's
because
a process.
They don't go away on its own.
Not some things. It definitely does not.
No, it doesn't. And I don't want to feel like I have to be strong, because when we get into that strong superwoman mode, we bury all of that stuff trying to be strong, trying to be strength,
Because
carrying
we come in
something.
survival mode again. You don't have time to hash it out.
Mm-hmm.
You got to suppress it and keep it moving until that time does come.
Mm-hmm. Carrying something that we don't have any business carrying.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to with that saying that God won't put more on us than we can bear. And it's just like, quit carrying people and quit carrying things into your next season that doesn't belong in there. Hold a second.
Ooh, girl, can you say
season?
quit carrying people again?
Well, hold on a second. Now quit carrying people into your seasons that don't belong there. Because number one, they're not equipped for that season. They're not ready for it. And that's
leave
why
Lot behind. The Bible said Abraham was supposed to leave Lot behind. He carried that nephew.
Mm-hmm.
He learned to leave him behind at some point, didn't he?
Absolutely.
So eventually you're going to have to learn the lesson. Did you get the assignment, ladies?
Yes. Exactly.
Baggage.
No, that was a good one, because I think about that situation all the time with Abraham and Lot. And it's just like, hey, sometimes the season is up, and because you got to allow people to grow on their own. You carrying somebody that, like, if I'm growing and God is equipped, I'm being pruned, I'm going through that persecution so that God can take me into my next season. Where you going at? Because I can't carry you. You didn't go through this persecution.
Right.
You don't deserve to be in this season. You didn't go where God can help you. And allow God to carry you into your season.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's so much with just that leave Lot behind. Mm-hmm. One, because God is trying to take you to a place.
Yeah.
And sometimes even family aren't worthy at going in that place that God has set for you.
And that's okay.
And if you don't learn that, you learn that lesson the hard way, because what ends up happening, you end up splitting your blessing with someone who's not worthy of having your blessing.
And it didn't even have their name on it.
Okay.
It's almost like you're going under the Christmas tree, you pass on the present. Nope, that one ain't for you.
Right.
That one's for me.
Right. That's a good example. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You need to get what God has for you. I need to get what God has for me. And so
see, that's the thing. People don't even want to put themselves in a position, because the Bible says you don't even have to covet. All you got to do is ask and put in the work. Faith and put in the work. That is it. You don't have to steal every other people's blessings. We all have our own individual portions. Seriously, there's nothing wrong with helping others, but to carry them, that's not our job.
You know what?
Jesus.
I'm in a place where I feel like I'm going to help those who God has tell me to help. Because a lot of times, and I found this because I'm so giving and always trying to help people, and I realized that people will try to use that, and they'll try to use me, and so I'm like, okay, absolutely not. No, I'm not gonna do that, because sometimes I see people who have their hands out for what, and the thing is that your mind should automatically say, I have other people or other things that I'm obligated to. Why should it just be you? You know,
right?
So that's really tough. That's really
I think
tough.
That comes with 40, Tawanjali.
Yes,
being
definitely. More
selective with who to help. I do believe in the Christian faith. And I'm learning that not all Christian faith is the same. So this is what I'm going to say. I do believe for the true followers of Jesus Christ that in the Black community, we're just taught to be givers. But I think as you grow and you mature, you start to learn who to give to. Because you could give to someone who's not trying to help themselves, and you end up in a hole yourself. But if you help someone who desires to be helped because they too are helping themselves, those are the folks who truly deserve your help.
Yes.
Or our help. because like you said, otherwise you're just going to come across someone who's using you.
And I've definitely had my share of users, and I have placed some boundaries up, and I just said that in the next season of my life, I have a circle of friends that are very supportive, that are loving and giving, and that always has my best interest. And I'm closing in on that circle and making sure that I'm supportive in a way. And I always make sure that I write on my vision board some way that I want to make sure that when I'm in position, I can sow back into my friends so that their lives can be enhanced as well. And not just, we're just going through life or whatever, but I want them to know how much I love and appreciate them for walking in seasons with me, not holding my hand, but being there as my support as I walk through my seasons. Because when I started a business, and you and I both know as entrepreneurs, it's not easy. It is not easy. It takes a lot. It's a grind. And sometimes it's really tough. Like some months you might be up and some months you might be down. And so that's really hard. That's really hard. Let's pause right there, and I'm going to bring in Kia.
Hey, Kia.
Kia, can you hear us?
She's getting there.
There she goes.
Hey.
Welcome to the party.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Good. Perfect. So we were just, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying hello. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We were just talking about seasons. This is my friend Veronica. She's been my high school friend for 20 plus, my best friend from high school for 20 plus years. And Kia has been my best friend from college for 20 plus years.
That's what's up. Hi, Kia.
Hello, Veronica. Is Kim here? I don't see her.
No, she's not in yet.
Oh, okay.
So we were just discussing seasons, and I was just talking about how much I appreciate, how much that I've closed in on the circle of friends that I have, and how much I value my friends and wanting to sow back into them, when I get into a place of position, and just thankful for my friends for walking into the seasons with me, not holding my hands, but being a support for me. Wow, we were talking about entrepreneurship and, just going out there and how hard it is, but having a good circle of friends that are there for you and having your back and being supportive and listening to your mess. Now, listen, I've been having some mess.
We all do.
That's exactly right. But sometimes it's so hard because when you're going through stuff and when you don't, okay, so here's the thing. When you don't talk about those things that are bothering you or triggering you, or just little things, you'll never know that someone else is experiencing those things because you don't talk about it. Just last week, Kim and I were having a conversation, and I was saying how 40 was so different for me because there was a lot of little changes that I've noticed, like even with my memory, or sometimes my vision doubles up, and I sometimes I could be writing and I'm saying, I got two statements going. It's like my brain is working in overdrive. And so or sometimes feeling like I'm not smart enough. And I'm just like, what is your problem? Like, what the heck? And so it's like hormones, that type of stuff. And she says, sometimes I feel the exact same way. I'm so glad that you brought this up, because sometimes it's those little things that you don't think about, no one else is experiencing. And then with me, I like to have a conversation now. That's the whole reason of let's talk about it. And so that was the whole reason I started this, but it just opens up dialogue so we as women are able to understand and know that we're not alone in our journey. We're not alone in our struggles, and that the other person, someone right next to you could be going through the same thing. So it just opens up communication so that we know that we're not by ourselves.
I agree. I totally think it's important for women to have a healthy, strong support system. It doesn't necessarily mean you need 5 to 10 to 15 girlfriends. No. Sometimes it could just be one female. So support is definitely a must.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. And sometimes it's so hard for women because there's always that feel of competition, or someone be thinking that you're going to get ahead of them, and it's not even about that. You know, it's not about that. It's so that we all can move forward, because God has a plan for all of us, and whatever He has for me is going to be for me, and He's not going to take what's for me and give it to you. That's not how that works. So we just have to realize that and become more secure in ourselves and being able
right. Key word, secure in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. Because I think insecure women are the ones that are jealous and tear other women down.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I definitely have my share of dealing with some insecure women who try to tear me down, which is so funny. But yeah, I'm just like, no, I'm not that person. Like, I'm not. But it just seemed to always happen. It just, I don't know. I'm like a loner, and I think that, and I don't talk as much to people unless I feel comfortable, you know, being in that space or whatever.
Right.
And then sometimes people think that I feel like I'm too good to talk with them. I had a girl that I met, I wouldn't say a friend, but someone that I met, and she said she didn't understand why I didn't talk to her. But I did talk to her a little bit. That's all I had. And so, yeah, but she was expecting,
You said that's all you had.
That's all I had. And so she was expecting something else, but I'm not, and I tell people this, but I had to correction. I'm not like a relationship type person, but I am. But I had to go back because I feel like I come across a lot of good people in my life, and I think that I ruined those relationships, not intentionally, but I feel like I didn't build on it, you know, and I could have a lot more. Like, it's kind of like you just cut people off, not intentionally, but it happens because you become so busy and buried into whatever it is that you have going on. And that's how it was for me. And so I guess they just felt like I didn't give them as much time, but I don't have time to give to myself. So that's hard.
Right.
I have a whole circle of friends and a large behind family. I don't have but so much that I could give to someone else. And I think that people don't understand and realize that, especially when you're an entrepreneur, because it takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot of work. And then you have clients that on top of that you have to deal with issues that are created, and then you have to put fires out. And so that's hard. That's really hard. And I don't think that people realize that. I'm sorry, but I don't have anything else to give you.
And that's just the career side of it. That's not even the personal, what you got to deal with at home.
Exactly. So yeah, there's 24 hours in a day, and people are, and there's some people that expect to have 4 hours out of your day, really 4 hours. Now, however, I literally take 4 hours out of Kita's day. I will take, okay, sometimes when we don't talk for a long time, like months and months could go by. When we get on the phone, there could be like a very long conversation, but it's almost like, okay, this is for the month. I'll be back again later. You know, just hold on to that. Just hold on to that. But that's just how we are. That's our friendship. And I know, like, the next time there's so much that we have to catch up on and unpack, you know? And so I don't think that she minds that. But for someone that's for someone that's close to me, I feel like it's okay. But for someone that's not close to me, I don't think that's okay.
I can understand that.
Now, Kia, we were talking about, prior to you coming on, we were talking about 40, walking into 40, and what that looked like the surprises, the changes, the things that you expected, the unanticipated things. And so I want to ask you, walking into 40, which I know that, walking into 40, what was that like for you? Like, what were there things that you were expecting and didn't happen, or were there things that just all came together for you? And plus, we were in pandemic as well, so that was definitely fun.
Yeah. I know that's what we talked about today. We were like, well, I know you turned 40 in June. I turned 40 in December. So we were right in the pandemic. Honestly, like, I don't think I was thinking too much beyond the pandemic. And of course, you know, I was pregnant at the time. So I wasn't thinking far beyond that. Now, I remember leading up to 40, and Twanja, you already know, like, how I felt about 40. Like, I didn't want, kids in my 40s. So I would say, like, I don't know when when I started realizing that, wait a minute, like 40 is like here, and I don't have any kids. I think my struggle with turning 40 is the fact that, I was having, I guess, a kid so much later than what I wanted or what I expected. And I still struggle with that a bit now, just because, I think about as I'm getting older, and, I feel like I'll be like a senior parent when they're still like relatively young, and things like that. But of course I had to get beyond that. But I think for me turning 40, that was one of the main things for me, is just like, I'm having my first kid, at 40. And also for me, I had to start accepting at that point that that may be my only kid, because that's all I really have time for. Because again, like, I always said that I didn't want kids beyond 40. And I had my first kid at 40. So that, I think, was the main thing that stood out for 40 for me, of course, was, having my first kid. And then, leading up to 40, I got married, like what? May. I turned 40 in December. I got married in May. So those were like big, life events that happened for me, absolutely, approaching 40. And then someone who had always lived alone for like the past 15, 16 years. Yeah. So that was a huge adjustment as well, because all this time, like, you have, like, your time is your own. Everything is the way that you want it. You can be lazy and lay in bed until 2 p.m. if you want, or, whatever. Or just get up and go. Twanja, you saw me a lot more when, of course the pandemic happened, but you saw me a lot more even, without considering like the pandemic and things like that. So, I'm
going to talk about that. Keep going.
I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I'll jump in. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So that was just to say that, like, so much for me changed, because you know that a change is coming, like when you get married and have a kid or whatever, but nothing really prepares you for how much of a change it's really going to be, especially when you have had so much of your adult life, as someone that's single. Because I think that's a big difference too, because you've kind of like grown into yourself. Like, if you were to like start a family, get married and start a family at 25, I think that's a lot different. You'll still have struggles, but I think it's a lot different than, doing that at 40, just because, not that you're set in your ways, but you already have like, your things that you've worked through and figured out what works for you. And then you have to now combine that with someone else who has their own way, and how they figured out how certain things may have worked for them. And you kind of like have to come to common ground. And I think that's hard to do when you've done something consistently for so long, and even with a grown mind. It's not like, like I'm some young chick, like thinking that I know everything. It's like you've experienced so much. So you do know, more
right.
Of what.
Okay.
So to me, it's just like, I know what works for me. And it's not just what I think, like this, I'm 40 years old. This is what works for me. And then you have to kind of like reset your mind a bit to, I guess, combine, now your way of doing things with someone else who has figured out a way to do it, to do it differently. Cause it's not like you can say like, oh, you're young and, you're not, you don't know yet. It's like we're both 40. So it's like we were both kind of like, okay, this is how I like to do things, and, all that stuff. So that was like, one of the biggest differences for me too, is because I had my own way of doing things that I know is what worked for me.
Right.
And you have to kind of like compromise and, do things differently. So yeah, I think those were the main things. Those were the biggest things with turning 40. Career-wise, didn't really change much. didn't really change much for me. I really wasn't focused on, what I was doing, like professional wise. It was really pretty much about family life at that point. Hey, Kim, I see Kim's here.
Yes.
So sorry.
Hey.
Hi.
That's okay. There's so much in there that Kia said that I'd like to unpack a little bit, and then anyone else can jump in on. I feel like, and this is what 40 brought me, and this is not the wine talking, but I feel like so let's say Kia and I were side by side and we were on a journey, right? And we're sharing what that journey looks like. And I feel like people give a lot of advice about how things should be done or what worked for them. 40 has taught me that my journey, my faith, and what I'm trusting in God, it's going to look different from the next person. And so what worked for them doesn't necessarily works for me. What I'm asking God and believing God for, if that person is not on that level, and asking God and believing, like if their faith can't carry them, then of course they're not going to be able to see it. So I feel like 40 has taught me on my journey that it's not going to look like someone else's journey. And I don't have to be a copycat. I can ask God and trust and believe him to make that happen, or to allow those things to happen for me. And so again, I think 40 has taught me to dismantle my way of thinking, like this path is going to be, a door can be open. Someone could blaze the trail for you, but that doesn't mean it's going to look the exact same way.
Yeah.
And the other part that I wanted to share with you was talking about the timing, because I'm going to tell you now, 40 did bring me a little bit sadness, because when Kia got married, and this is not the wine talking, I was really happy, but a part of me was sad, because this is what our relationship was like. Like, I have a relationship with every last one of you, and it's different on different levels. And so for us, we had spent so much time doing the same things because we love those things. So we would go to the theater, and Kia and I would watch 5 or 6 movies in a weekend, but that's what we love to do. And we would go to a restaurant, and this would be Kia's idea, but we would order 2 entrees and take our food for the next day. That would be Kia's idea. But it was just those relationships, not like we had talked about that today, because we were discussing going out for my birthday and talking about 2 meals. And I was like, yeah, same here. But it was so hard for me, because I felt like I was losing one of my best friends, which I wasn't, but I think that I was probably in like a selfish mode, or maybe having to make that adjustment, because it was just like, for years, Kim and I would talk all the time. And then she got married, and then the time was limited. And plus she had a son, you know what I'm saying? So it's her family. Veronica and I would talk all the time, but during those time frames, you know, say it would be set like sometime in the middle of the morning, because her and her husband was a truck driver, and they would be out doing, working and stuff like that. So we had this set aside time. And so when she started having kids, and in that point, it was just like I was alone. So then there was me and Kia, and she wasn't married and she didn't have any kids. So when she did, Jesus Christ, I almost lost it. I did. But then what happened was which was so good, because I felt like God knew exactly what I needed. Everyone came back full circle. And
praise God. That's so dope. That is so dope.
So I definitely didn't feel like I was alone. But in the beginning, I really did almost have like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't have my friends anymore. But I managed to pull that together. It's like it just all came back. And so now, like, again, like, even though Kia and I don't talk as much as we do, but when we do talk, it's probably going to be at least 4 hours. It's going to be 4 hours, so I feel, and then even like for Kim and I, like, we talk a lot more now, and I know that her job is a lot. In the beginning of her career, I would be on the phone all the time because in her seasons of work, she would be like, oh, talk to me till I get home. And then she would hang up the phone after she done wake me up in the middle of the morning. But her work required that type of stuff. So again, I have those different relationships with each one of you. But it was definitely, it was an adjustment for me. It was hard. But now I have my own work that I throw myself into. So that kind of keeps me occupied, and I'm actually okay. So thank you, 40. I'm okay.
That's pretty dope.
Kim, thank you for joining. And just a recap, I was just saying how earlier, this was before Kia came on, so of course you'll get to hear this, how I feel like support is important to me. And I feel like God has allowed, and I swear this is not the wine talking, but I can feel the buzz. But I feel like God allowed us to have this moment because I knew that this was out of each and every one of you comfort zone. Like I knew, like I was getting the resistance, but it was the fact that you guys stepped up and said, because Kia said, you know, I don't really do this, but I'm gonna support you. And I feel like that had been support has been very big for me. And I feel like, and I also mentioned how over the years that when I was younger, I was never celebrated. And so because I wasn't, I put up this wall and I felt like, oh, I don't need to be celebrated. Like, you know, and it's just like, hold on a second. And I feel like God, okay, so this is the wine because I could feel it. But I feel like God allow these things to happen so that I would understand and know what being celebrated felt like. I feel like I'm getting back all of the stuff that I didn't have when I was growing up. So thank you for just coming out of your comfort zone and sharing this moment. Go ahead, Kim.
That's sweet. I'm glad you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for me, because I know you said that Kim kind of like felt the same way about doing the podcast. Mm-hmm. You know, I told you like I'm not a talker. And then so like I like to prepare my mind for the conversation. Mm-hmm. You know, I just talked to you about it today. So I really, even though we talked earlier, I still didn't have time to prepare because, you know, I had like then was trying to eat dinner and stuff. Like I didn't get a chance to change. You see, I got stains all in my t-shirt. I'm in the closet because I don't want to wake him up by going through the room. So I was just like, you know what, it didn't work out, but I said I was going to be here. So here I am.
And thank you, Kia, for showing up. Thank you for showing up in this moment. And I love you.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I was like, I'm not a talker. I mean, you might get about 5 minutes or so out of me, but other than that, I don't really know what we're going to be talking about for that whole time.
Well, you 5 minutes. Like I was thinking 5 sentences.
Right.
The cool part is Tawanda Winley is the talker, so she could always fill it in. Okay.
Yeah.
But listen, you know what I tell people, and I do this all the time. Every time I get up, I always say I don't really talk a whole lot. Knowing I be lying, no good and well I be lying, and up there like 30 minutes. I remember one time I was giving a presentation in grad school, and my professor at the end of the night he said, what did he tell me? That I talk too damn much. And now it was so shocking or whatever he said. I was thinking to myself, is she ever going to sit down? No. Dr. River was so funny, but I don't see myself as a talker. And the craziest part, and
you've always been long-winded.
Yeah, I believe it.
In a good way, though. In a good way.
When I started the foundation and then I had to do like a whole lot of interviews, and you have no idea what that transition looked like for me, which I do feel like this prepares me for a different level. But it was all, my anxiety would be on 1,000, like literally 1,000. And I felt like I could never prepare for it. So I didn't know how it was going to go. I would be up early and I would pace the floor. I mean, straight panic attack. And then I have to text my therapist and say, okay, I'm feeling this type of way. And he's like, it's okay. Like, this is normal, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I didn't get to the bathroom like 3 times. Is that okay? And he's like, yeah, it's absolutely normal. But, you know, that's exactly. And so I just feel like that's why I didn't tell you guys exactly what this was going to be like, because honestly, I didn't know. Every time I do this, I wing it every single time. And I just feel like if I connect with people, I just get in the zone and it just becomes natural for me.
I wanted to share something with Kia quick in terms of entering 40. I didn't want to have kids in my 40 either. So I literally slid in a few months before I turned 40 with my last baby. I have 4 kids, and my last baby, she was born in October and my birthday was in April. So I do understand having kids at a more mature age, but what I also had to come with terms with that I lived a lot of my life to the fullest in the earlier part of my years without kids versus those younger moms.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a difference. And you do walk into motherhood at least feeling like you got to live your life first before you started having kids.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I would agree with that. And not only just living your life, but having more to give to a child,
Right.
or just being more mature. Because Andra, no, I'll always go back to my parents, but my parents got married young, and they started having us young. Had all five of us by the age of 26. So it was, you saw them growing up just as you were growing up, and you don't realize it then. But like looking back, like when I talk about my parents, with how much they used to argue and like the silly stuff they used to do during the arguments. It's like at the time you just see them as your parents, and you don't really realize that they're really still immature themselves. They don't have it all figured out. So even that and my age helped prepare me and made me think about what type of example I wanted to set, for my, not only for my kid, but even for my marriage. Like I knew what I didn't want in my marriage, or a guy. So I do appreciate the good things from that come from having kids later in life and having, like a relationship later on in life. But at the same time, I just had struggles because I'm just like old. So that was, like I said, one of the things I had to come to terms with, which I have. But yeah, they have like the pros and cons that come with it.
We were saying that even some of the things that we experienced that was negative, it was still necessary and a part of the process for us. And I felt like 40 there was a lot of pruning for me, and definitely a lot of persecution that I had endured walking into 40. But I do feel like at the time I didn't understand, and sometimes I felt like I didn't see God. But there was always those reminders that God was walking literally with me. And that was like, sometimes I would pause and be like, He is actually here with me. Like he really is in this situation. And I think that, of course, it comes with maturity, because I had never seen God in that way. And I felt like maybe I was just going on levels or whatever, experiencing God on levels, but definitely I started to see God differently, and my relationship with God had grown a lot because I had made that vow that is something that I wanted. Like I definitely wanted the next half of my life to be different from the other half.
Yeah.
So Kim, what we were talking about earlier is, what are some of the things that walking into 40, what were some of the things that was expected, that was unexpected, that you anticipated or unanticipated? What was that like walking into 40 for you?
For me, I'd say, I think one of the things that I expected as a younger person, you think when you're 40, you're going to be settled and everything's just going to be, together and perfect. And, you're going to know where you are and who you are. And I realized like, that's not the case, because I feel like I'm kind of trying to find myself now with Tawandra, what you saying, friends coming back is like, that's one thing at 40 I realized. It's like, I need my friends. I think I've spent so much time being a mom and being, a wife and all of this. And it was like, I need that friendship. I need that circle of people that I can, be myself, but have fun.
Right. Community. It's almost like that saying that says it takes a village or community to raise a child, but we need that for ourselves in our adulthood as well. We definitely do.
Yeah. And so that was one of the things I said. I was like, I have to focus on my friendship, because I have friends that, and kind of like you, at one point I'll talk to them and then we may go a month or so without talking. And then, you get back into it. But I was like, with Adam getting older, he's 15. And so he's going out to some, he's not even worried about me when I'm looking back. Yeah. And I'm like, what do I do? Because that's been my life for the last, 15 years. So now it's like, since he's having his own life, like, what am I supposed to do? So now it's like, I'm trying to reinvent myself. And I think at 40, I realized, like, kind of like you were saying earlier, I can't live my life based on the images that I've seen growing up or the people that I know growing up. It's like, I need to figure out for myself, what do I like? What do I like in my marriage? What do I want for my kids and my relationship with my kids? And I can't rely on other people and worry about what other people think about my relationship or what's going on. So I think that's the main thing. I think self-care for me was like big at 40. And, your body starts changing and, you become aware that you become aware of that type of stuff. And I had to tell myself the other day, is like, I had to let my body go through the process that it's going through and accept me for who I am, be happy with who I am. And at the end of the day, so what? Focus on being happy, focus on your life and focus on, having joy and the important things like losing 5 pounds. It's not that big of a deal for you to be stressing out for 2 months, but so it's putting things in perspective.
Yeah. And I think that at 40 or even before 40, but I think that when we hit an age of maturity, our values start to change.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that has been really big for me too, because there was a lot of changes, but good changes for me walking into 40. At one point I would have said, 40, like bum, what did it say? Bah humbug. But no, I think that when I think back of it and just like having this conversation, I really feel like 40 has definitely set the tone for something greater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, I do want to thank you guys for joining me, and this is my pre-recorded birthday celebration. And I wanted to say, like, thank you guys for just being so supportive. And I think I mentioned this earlier before Kim got on. Veronica and I have been high school friends so this is like 20 plus years of relationship. And then Kim and Kia and I met when we were in college. And so this is 20 plus years of relationship. And when you hear people say, people don't support you, or your family or friends don't support you, I can't say that, because I could never stress enough how much love and support that I've received in the last 20 plus years from my friends and my family as well. So yeah, I don't have any kind of problems. I really don't. Like I really do feel like I'm loved and supported, and I can't thank you guys enough for joining me. And this is not the alcohol talking, but I really can't thank you guys enough for just always being there and supporting me with everything, every crazy idea that I jump on and be ready. And normally, listen, the craziest part about it is that whenever I have an idea in my mind, it's done before I even mention it. So when I tell somebody I have an idea, it's not about me trying to work it out or to see if it's going to work. Oh, no. Oh, I'm already in 100%. And knowing that I have a vision board, that I have so many things on there that I want to experience. And there's so many great things that I see ahead in my future. But I do want to say this. I don't think that I would want to go walk into my future without having you guys with me.
Praise God. Honored.
So get ready.
She ready.
You don't know what God has in store, but I always put great things on my vision board, but I always make sure that I add my friends onto it, because I don't think that I would want to do life with anybody else except you guys. And even when I get married, I'm not going to dump you. I will still be here.
Yeah, because I didn't dump you.
Too.
No, you did not. You did not.
I didn't dump you.
I did not.
No, because I think that because I talk so much trash about Kim dumping me, that you probably felt guilty and did not leave me. I think that's what
I did not dump you.
I don't even remember Kim dumping you.
Thank you. I dumped you.
And if she did, it wasn't for her marriage. It was probably about work, because I remember she would tell me sometimes that she would work. long hours. But Twanja, we always had like our moments. We probably had less moments than we do now, but we had always had our moments where, a month would go by and we probably didn't talk, just like here lately as we've gotten busier with like work and stuff like that. But yeah, I think but I think that was you. I think you got busier than me. And I started to hear from you less, or you would go on these little sabbaticals where you weren't talking to people, or were head down, whatever project popped into your head. So, I think really with the foundation that we already had, like we can go, these long, time without talking, and no one feels any type of way about it. Like, when we haven't talked for like 2 months, no one's like, "Why you ain't called me? Like, what's wrong with you?" Like, getting feelings about it. Like, it's just life. And I know that all intentions are good when it comes to you. Like, I've never felt like, wronged me or whatever. Like, yeah, you can be brutally honest at times.
And then I hear that voice says, Twanja.
For you, Twanja, I know it always comes from a place of love. Like, if anyone, like, you're like, one of the few friends that I can say, like, even if something were to appear that, Twanja stabbed me in the back or whatever, like, obviously, like, something has been misconstrued or whatever, because I just know that would like never happen. Like, that's the level of confidence that I have in you as a friend. It's like, I just know, like, you always have like my best interest, and you or whatever. So whatever happens, if you disappear for a month, 2 or 5 or whatever, like,
I'm 5 now. I ain't going away for 5. Believe that.
We've gone 2, maybe 3 months, Twanja.
Okay, gosh, I hadn't really noticed that.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. And I'm not going to put it all on, because I know I just disappear sometimes. I'm just like,
don't have the energy.
It's just like, I don't even want to talk to anybody. I just want to go home, take my shower, and just watch a movie or something.
That would be it. I agree.
And just like not even think enough to even have like a real conversation. Like, but yeah, like I said, like, it's, I know it's all love between me and you, because you are that you really put everything into your friendships, and into your relationships, period. So just like you were saying, like, you always have support. Like, I feel the same about you. Like, you always, even from, I don't know, even from like, when did I leave? Like maybe 17, 18 years ago. Like, I was always that person that really will, and this goes back to what you were saying about not building on relationships that, where you may have like the opportunity to build a relationship with someone in the past. And I was always that one that would, I'd be good friends with somebody, but like, if we ever like, took different paths where, when we met in Spartanburg, I ended up and going to college somewhere closer to home. Really, like, in most situations, like, I wouldn't have kept a relationship. And I didn't keep a relationship with most of the people that I met in Spartanburg. Really you, that I have like the strongest relationship with there. But, and I think that was mainly you. I think at first, like, you used to, keep in touch with me, but it's like, as years went by, it's just like, we always, kept in touch and things like that. And like, our relationship just like strengthened, because even in, I don't know about Kim, but when we were in Spartanburg, like, we were close friends, but we weren't like super close. Right. Like, it's just something that, like, grew over the years. But I say that this is like one relationship where I feel that this is going to sound cliche, but I really feel like it was like meant to be. Like, I remember we were in class, and I remember like the first note that you sent to me, you was like,
oh, yes,
my sister's name is Lakia. She spells it L-A or whatever. And it's like, for one, like, I always struggled with getting close to people, just because I was very reserved, and I didn't like the.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Y'all ain't hear none of that. What y'all heard?
No,
It was after the note. That was all.
Yeah.
Oh, well, shoot. I don't even know where I don't even Oh, Twanja, that just like you said, that you appreciate our friendship and our support, the feeling's mutual. Like the same thing. Like I can't speak for Veronica, but if you've been the type of friend to them that you've been to me, then it's kind of like you reap what you sow. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
you've poured into us or whatever. So of course, like even though this is completely out of my comfort zone and I really didn't want to do this, I'm like, Wanja, so I guess I'll do it.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone. I feel like this has gone out of my control, and I still feel like I received my flowers today. So I know it, right? So I do appreciate you guys stepping up and sharing all of this love that God has poured into me. This is exactly what I needed to start my start of 41. So I thank you.
This episode is sponsored by the Twindle Foundation. The Twindle Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to changing the wealth gap of African Americans and minorities by increasing homeownership. Did you know that 44% of Black families own their home compared to 73% of white families? A barrier to minority homeownership is student loan debt. Through scholarship, the Twindle Foundation is providing minority students with an opportunity to take on less financial debt. To give to the Twindle Foundation, visit www.twindlefoundation.org.